Friends and viewers, today I'm going to read you The Pearl, the novel or the novella. The name of this is The Pearl by John Steinbeck. So, this is a very beautiful, interesting story. There is a three character involved in this novella. Kino, the novella's protagonist, a hero, is a young Mexican Indian pearl diver married to Joanna. They have a baby named Coyotito. So their lives seem rather peaceful, but their tranquility is threatened when a scorpion bites Coyotito. Joanna tells Kino to go to town and get the doctor. But Kino, their neighbors, tell Johanna that the doctor will never come to where they live. So Johanna decides to take matter into her own hands and set off with Coyotito to the doctor. Kino accompanies Johanna, and many members of the village follow them to see what will happen. At the doctor's house, the doctor's servant tells Kino and Johanna that the doctor is not at home. In truth, the doctor is home, but will not help Coyotito because Kino cannot pay the doctor as much as the doctor wants, but also because the doctor is prejudiced against Kino's race. Kino goes to work diving in the Gulf for oysters from his canoe, his little rowing boat. Johanna tends to Coyotito in the canoe by applying brown seaweed to his shoulder, which is swollen from the scorpion's bite. As Kino is collecting oyster on the ocean bottom, he spots a larger than usual oyster, collects it, and returns to the canoe. Kino does not want to open the oyster immediately, but Johanna prompts him to open the oyster. When he does, he finds a pearl the size of a seagull's egg. Joanna gazes at the immense pearl. She then goes to check on Coyotito and discovers that Coyotito's shoulder is no longer swollen. Kino is immensely happy about both the pearl and Coyotito and yells loudly enough that he attracts the attention of the other oyster divers who race towards his canoe. Before Kino reaches home with his great pearl, the news of his discovery has already reached his village and the town. Everyone fantasizes what he or she would do with the wealth that the pearl represents, including the doctor who previously refused to help Coyotito but now says that the baby is patient of his. The priest arrives at Kino and Johanna's hut and tells Kino tells them that he needs to give thanks for finding the pearls. The doctor visits Kino and Johanna and tricks them into allowing him to treat Coyotito, even though Kino knows that Coyotito is already cured. In fact, the doctor has done is to make Coyotito sick so that the doctor can then cure the baby and get paid more money. Coyotito indeed does get sick, and the doctor returns and gives the baby a different medicine that cures the baby. When the doctor asks Kino for payment, Kino says that his plan is to sell the pearl the next day. The doctor offers to keep the pearl for Kino, and Kino refuses the request, but the doctor tricks Kino into revealing where Kino has hidden the pearl. That night, Kino hears someone in the hut draws his knife and strikes out at the figure and draws blood, but is hit over the head with a heavy object. Joanna senses that the pearl is evil and begs Kinu to throw the pearl back into the sea. But Kinu refuses, believing still that pearl will give them better lives than they have. On the day that Kinu is to sell the pearl, the other divers do not give diving. Kinu and Johanna begins the trip to Pearl Boyers, followed by the entire village. The first pearl buyer to whom Kinu offers to sell the pearl offers Kinu a small amount of money for the pearl, saying that the pearl is too big and no one else will buy it. He sends word to the other pearl buyer in town to come to his office and appraise the pearl. When the three new pearl buyer arrives at the first office, the three of them already plan together what each will offer Kinu. Kinu, realizing that the pearl buyers are working together to get the pearl for the least amount of money, says that he will go to the capital to sell his pearl. The first pearl buyer raises his offer to buy the pearl, but it's too late. Kinu leaves back in the village. Kinu's neighbors discuss whether or not Kinu should have accepted the main buyer's last offer. That night, Kinu hears noises outside the hut and goes outside to check out what is making the noise. Johanna listens inside the hut to Kinu's being attacked and rushes out with a brick to help him, but it's too late. Kinu is bloodied and beaten, and the attackers have escaped without Kinu being able to identify them. Again, like the previous night, Joanna begs Kinu to throw the pearl back into the sea, but Kinu again refuses to because he envisions the pearl being sold and the money being used to fund Coyotito's education. He resolved to sell the pearl in the capital. Later, Joanna rises in the dark, takes the pearl from the hut, and goes to the beach. Kinu follows her and catches up with her at the beach just as she is ready to throw the pearl into the water. He hits her and saves the pearl from going into the water. But he is then attacked by some figure he cannot identify. The pearl is knocked from his hand, but he is able to stab one of his assailant before he is knocked unconscious. Joanna regains consciousness and finds Kinu lying unconscious, a dead stranger next to him. When Kinu regained consciousness, Joanna returned the pearl to him, and from where she found it lying behind a rock, and tells him that they must flee the village because he has killed a man. Joanna leaves to go to gather their belongings. Kinu goes to check on their canoe and finds that a large hole has been smashed into its bottom. As they approach their hut, they see it burning in flames. Taking Coyotito, they go to Kinu's brother's hut and spend the day hiding there. Kinu's brother, Johann Thomas, lets the other villager think that Kinu and his family have run away, all the while gathering provision for when Kinu and Joanna will flee. Kinu continues to believe that the pearl is not something evil, but instead offers a more promising future for him and his family. Kinu, Joanna, and Coito leave their village, head towards Lorito. Kinu is careful to make sure that they have no tracks, but knows that they will be followed because of the pearl's great value. Because they are traveling at night, the next dawn, they conceal themselves and settle down for the day. Joanna and Coito fall asleep, and soon Kinu does too. He is suddenly awakened by noises, creeps out from where They are hiding and sees tracker who are following them. Once the tracker passes by the hiding place, Kinu and his family head towards high mountains. When they reach the first rise of the mountain, Kinu tries to convince Johanna to hide with Coyotito while he leads the tracker away, but she refuses, so they head higher up to the mountain to where Kinu finds a stream. There, Kinu hides Johanna and Coyotito in a small cave and makes false tracks up the side of the mountain, hoping to mislead the tracker. He then hides in the cave with his family. The trackers arrive at the spring and make camp for the night. Kinu realizes that the trackers will discover them in the morning, vows to attack the tracker before the tracker attacked he and his family. As he moves more closely to the trackers, Campfire, one of the tracker who is keeping watch, aims his gun towards where he has heard a cry in the night and fires his gun. Kinu jumps on the tracker, kills him with his knife. Kinu grabs the dead tracker gun and shoots a second tracker. The third tracker scrambles away from the Kinu, but Kinu shoots and kills this tracker as well. He then notices how quiet the night is. This quiet is punctured by the sounds of Johanna's crying. Coyotito has been killed by the watcher's gunfire. Later that night, late in the afternoon, Kinu and Johanna walk side by side into town, with Johanna carrying a bundle that contains the dead Coyotito. People watch in silence as the two walk silently as in trance. Kinu and Johanna reaches the beach, where Kinu offers the pearl to Johanna to throw it in the sea. She refuses, telling Kinu that he should be the one. He cocks his arm and throws the pearl as far out into the sea as he can. It sinks to the sandy bottom among the water plants. So Kinu threw the pearl, that precious pearl, to the back into the water. So this is how they get rid. They again threw the pearl. They could not get the pearl. So the character involved in this novel is the young Kinu, the young Indian pearl diver who finds the magnificent pearl, whose life is partially destroyed by this pearl. Johanna, Kinu's wife and faithful partner in eking out a meager living, she is obedient and devoted to her family. Coyotito is a Kinu and Johanna's infant son. He is bitten by a scorpion and recovers miraculously, only to be later killed by a bullet. John Tom's Kinu's brother, advisor, and his only protector. Apollonia, Johanna's fat wife, who has no real significance in the story. The doctor, thoroughly heartless, self-seeking man. The priest's discovery of the pearl is said to be put a thoughtful look in his eyes. The pearl buyer, they are unnamed in the story. So this is the story of the pearl by John Steinbeck, a very marvelous story, the tale of a poor Kinu, the Mexican Indian pearl diver, how he get that precious pearl, but he could not sell it. Instead, he again threw it back into the sea. Thank you very much for patience.